survive the season? Will this be my goodbye? Is there no rhyme or reason for who gets to live or die? Will I survive this season? Reap all that I have sown?
Who will survive the Game of Thrones?
I dream of ruling.
Welcome to Wednesday in Westeros. I'm Taylor Trask.
And I am Todd A.
And we're doing a show.
I did it again, man. My
do?
goal to myself is not to say my name with a question mark at the end of it. I'm Todd A. Period.
I'm Todd A.
I'm Todd A.
I've never noticed that, but you're so right.
Every time I listen back to our podcast, I'm kicking myself. So, okay. I'm Todd A. Damn it. Proceed.
All right, one more time. Here we go. Welcome to Wednesday in Westeros. I gotta stop laughing. Welcome to Wednesday in Westeros. I'm Taylor Trask.
And I'm Todd A.
And we are here on a no, it's still Tuesday. It's not Wednesday yet. It's almost Wednesday. We're recording this kind of late on a Tuesday because you are moving or have moved to California.
Yeah, I'm either one of those nomad adventurers that everyone should be envious of, or I'm like the dumbest person that you know. So it's just there's
Pretty
no gray area for me. It's been a.
Someone called him a wise man, others a fool.
Yeah,
Others,
there's probably no wise. It's just degrees of foolhardiness with me.
A healthy dose of foolhardiness goes a long way, though. Can't fault you.
Yeah, I think I'm outgrowing that, but I'll take that. I'll take that as positive feedback and roll with it. It has been a rough week to schedule for sure.
For sure.
So,
well, you did have time to watch it, as we were just discussing.
Yes, we did watch the episode.
And I don't know about you, but man,
it was pretty good. I mean, it was okay.
Oh, goodness gracious!
I just
watched
wish
this
some
thing.
stuff had happened.
I watched this thing and I laughed, I cried, I immediately texted you going, yeah, my hands were almost shaking. I couldn't even text you. I was just like, what? I mean, this is like, it was, for me, bar none, the greatest episode they have ever done to date.
I'm hard-pressed to contradict that. I mean, there's nothing that just jumps to mind where I'm like, oh, but, what about the Ned's Head episode? Because there have been many great moments through every season, but this was I mean, there are the big battle episodes in which I'm engaged the whole time.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But this one had tons of scenes, and I was riveted through every one of them.
Exactly. There wasn't a single second of story wasted for any reason. Like, then that's
and
just
it's
it.
Like, damn it, do that every week.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun too because this season has been going along at a nice steady clip. Like, okay, and then all of a sudden they drop this on us, and this is only episode 5. This isn't even the Ned's Head episode. This is just halfway through, and then they give us this. Where are they? I worry in that maybe they blew their wad too soon, and it's all downhill from here. Or maybe this is like another brick on the wall, and it's like, wait till you guys see next week. Like, what if?
Well, I mean, so a couple episodes ago, I talked about how, look, it looks like we're going to see 2 big battles this season. We're going to see the Battle of the Bastards, the 2 Snows armies fighting each other, which will probably be like the Hard Home, the Battle of Blackwater Bay, like one of those, either the 9th episode or something.
Yeah.
If it happens, and then second battle I thought would happen is when the Tyrell army confronts the Faith Militant, and I think your prediction was we're not going to see the Battle of the Bastards this season.
Oh no, I never said that. I am not convinced we're going to see anything from the Tyrells.
Oh, you just don't think that's going to be a big battle? No,
I don't think it's going to be anything. I think it's going to be, they'll bring all the soldiers in, and there's going to be some other thing that happens that shuts that down pretty quick.
Well, it's in the previews for next week.
Yeah, we're going to see. I mean, maybe I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love for there to be some kind of, it'd be fun for the Lannisters to have, something up their sleeve. I think they're so beaten down. But this brings up a great point. Just saying the word Lannisters reminds me, we talk about every second of this episode, this most recent episode wasn't wasted, and guess what? Every second was not about the Lannisters or King's Landing. King's Landing didn't appear once.
Yeah.
And it was the most compelling episode they've ever done, which says a lot about where King's Landing is right now. It's just how little it matters in the overall scheme of things in terms of the story and the characters and what they're building.
Yeah. Well, you had a really good flow for what we should talk about.
Yeah.
But just bringing up the Lannisters first makes me think maybe the first thing we jump into is the Arya scene from this week.
Yeah, we can. Well, and you
Because,
say that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I say that because even though there was no moment where I was sort of bored or, hating the exposition going on, it was exposition,
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like, they could have cut it out and I wouldn't have missed it.
Are we talking about the whole scene or just the play within the play as it was?
The play I thought was great. It was the Jaqen interactions and the waif, like another ass kicking from the waif.
Okay, so I'm on the opposite side of the fence here.
Really?
I had the same argument with somebody on IO9 who's like, yeah, it was all great, but that Arya stuff was just boring as shit. I'm like, it would be were it not for one or two crucial points. One, watch the way Jaqen Hagar behaves and acts during that entire sequence. It really struck me more than it has ever before, and I think this was intentional. I hope it was intentional. It struck me more than ever before. Jaqen Hagar now is 180 degrees away from where he was when we first met him in Season 2. He's not the sort of mysterious, swashbuckling, charismatic guy he was. He's like Peter Gibbons in Office Space. He's just going through the motions. He's just going through the drudgery. And I feel like this is his real life, right? Like we haven't seen him be a faceless man. He kind of was when he was teaching Arya a lesson last year, when like he and the Waif kind of kept changing faces and shit. But like otherwise, he hasn't been like Master Assassin Jaqen Hagar. Like he's just been kind of moping around the house teaching Arya, and his demeanor, his tone, his presence is one of is just dour, right? And so when he comes and when he shows up after the Waif's kicking Arya's ass, and we get a little glimpse that Arya's improving. But what's important is when you see Jaqen, he almost looks just kind of like he looks a little concerned, a little bored. Like there's more going on there. And then when he takes Arya out and he gives her the exposition of this is why the Faceless Men exist. It's a little underwhelming. You're like that's really it. That's how the Faceless Men started. That's not much. And I think again that might have been intentional because it just kind of it all went to kind of show you like Jaqen Hagar's life is not some wonderful. I'll say swashbuckling again, like foray. It's just kind of this drudgery where they kill people, good and bad, and this is what it is. And I'm going to go one step further. I think, or rather, unlike a lot of fan theories out there, I don't think the Faceless Men were targeting Arya from the very beginning. That seems to be a predominant theory. I think her and Jaqen's encounter was purely coincidental, and I think what Jaqen sees in her is a chaotic element. They have, as he pointed out, they have never had a lord or lady be a Faceless Man before. Arya's got a lot of piss and vinegar that they keep trying to beat out of her, and she's betrayed them already really early on. She's kind of jumped out on her own. I think he sees her as kind of a disruptive element that will either end his vow, quote unquote, or shake up the Faceless Men, corporation, so that he can actually feel alive again. I look at him and how he behaves. I'm like, this is not the same dude we met in Season 2 at all.
Well, that's an interesting note because, of course, in the books, Jaqen Hagar is never seen again. Mm-hmm. And Arya is instructed in the House of Black and White by some other dude.
And it's never revealed or hinted that guy might be Jaqen Hagar?
I mean, who knows?
I wonder. Here's the big question too, and this is good for book people like yourself because I maybe there's some other context here I'm not aware of. I look at Jaqen Hagar and like the last 2 seasons, maybe even the last 3 seasons, he has been basically this the entire time. What the hell was he doing in Westeros to begin with? And more importantly, why was he captured? This is a guy who has proven again and again he is more stealthy and more skilled than anybody else. Like this is a dude who would not be. There's no reason for him to get captured. Why was he captured? Why was he in Westeros? And all of a sudden, and more importantly, why was he like throwing out his name to Arya? Like, hey, I'm a man, but you can call me Jaqen Hagar. Like, it's like, and maybe it's just lazy writing. Maybe they're like, this is what he is now, and we're just not going to retcon anything. But I'd love to feel like there's more going on here, and I'm going to cling to that until I'm proven otherwise.
Well, I mean, I think that's what's driving those fan theories. But to me, it's just kind of the butterfly effect of like he was a swashbuckling, interesting character, and they thought we'll just do a swap and put him in the role of whatever this guy's name is. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. And when they did that, it was like, well, now he's got to be sort of he's got to be this. I don't know, this dour, I don't know, what do you want to call him? He's not a priest, but he's
Mopey
something like that,
I was just calling him Mopey McMoperson.
Sure, yeah, and
Reverend
so
Mopey.
But I agree with you. It's totally the opposite of what we liked about Jock and Hagar at first.
Yeah.
So,
again, but just watch, and here's something else that's interesting to think about. The Waif, as much as I hate her as a character, you watch her interactions with Arya, it's clear there's something going on where the Waif either was, as a person, betrayed by House Stark at some point, or betrayed by a lord and lady, and has this huge grudge that she's taking out on Arya, which is interesting because every time she plays into that as a character, she becomes less and less, quote-unquote, no one herself.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like Jack comes around the corner, and I feel like watch the way he reacts to that scene when he sees Arya and the Waif kind of finishing their fight. Like he looks kind of disappointed and concerned. Like maybe I read too much into it, but he looks like he shouldn't, right? He looks like something's wrong. And I want to feel like it's the Waif breaking down, like she's losing her faceless man sort of training because Arya keeps bringing that out in her. And then it begs the question, well, why is he putting them together so much? I don't feel like there's anything that goes on in the House of Black and White that's not intentional. And this takes us to the quote-unquote play within a play. I know for sure Jack and Hagar knew what that play was going to be, knew what it was going to show Arya. I feel like the chick and the actress that she's supposed to kill is just a red herring. I think he's trying to push her buttons. Again, he's wanting that chaotic element, and he's pushing her buttons. He's like, I'm going to send her to this play. I'm going to tell her she's going to kill this person, but she's going to see this farce about her family and get even more riled up.
Well, that's a really interesting theory because, I was taking it as like, finally this episode we get a little bit of the reason why the Waif is so viciously beating Arya every time,
Mm-hmm.
Like we finally got the animus behind that, what, like she does hate that she's royalty, or whatever you call it, highborn. But if you're talking about this chaotic element, then Jockin's probably pulling the strings with the Waif too, and he knows that that's what's going to, to push her to drop her no one mask, have her train Arya, because that's really what bugs the shit out of her is highborn lords and ladies. So
I like feeling, because Jack and Hagar has been so kick-ass this whole time, I like feeling that he's like a 10th level grandmaster of chess, and that this is all just, he's got games within games being played right now. And we're in the House of Black and White, for God's sake. So it's like, of course, there's nothing is as it seems. It's like, those CIA movies where like, they're always like, nothing is as it seems, and everything gets. And there's gonna be some big reveal coming where he's like, this is what our real mission's been.
I did sort of get a play of that too, and I don't know. I'll just be disappointed if he doesn't just throw off that Jedi cloak one day and like not be in the armor or whatever.
And he may not. I mean, it may just be one of those things that they're so busy with all these other kick-ass moments that they've just sort of neglected him, and he's just going to die a boring death. I hope not, but here we are. What did you think of the quote-unquote play within a play, as I call it?
I loved it, and I have to crib someone else's words about it that I forgot where I read this, but I just thought they nailed it, where it was showing Arya that her view of her father's death was not the only view.
Yeah.
Like that was such a clever way to show it, and show Arya you're not the good guys in the rest of the world.
Well, and her view is our view too. Like we've seen it through her eyes, so we have a different context now too. It's cool to see how Esteros looks at Westeros as kind of like this joke. Like, nobody, it's not like only Ned Stark was portrayed poorly. Like everybody in that thing was portrayed very, not very flat.
Yeah, I guess what was so interesting was that, and Essos. I mean,
Essos, I'm
I don't mean to correct, but
No, please do.
unless
I don't wanna
unless
get
we
yelled
get
at
a
online.
hateful comment or something.
Yeah.
But and I don't know if Bravos is technically part of Essos, but anyway, it was funny to see how the Lannister characters mirrored what we already thought of the Lannisters. You know, like to us that was like sort of understandable parody,
Yeah.
but then like you pointed out to Arya and to us, Ned was like a wildly exaggerated parody.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was so cool of like, you know, to think, well, what we saw of the Ned Joffrey story was already us seeing a parody of the Lannisters, you know, through Ned's perspective, which is a really neat way, you know, especially with all the books being told in point of view chapters, and you know, it was just great, you know, a great storytelling, I thought.
I kind of had a smile on my face too, though, because it was, you could tell they were borrowing a little from Midsummer Night's Dream, which is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. But the glorious thing about Midsummer Night's Dream, if you don't know, is towards the end there is a play within the play that's a really exaggerated. It's like the funniest moment of the entire thing, and it's like this really over the top, exaggerated kind of thing. And this seemed to be they kind of seemed to be borrowing a page from that, just like, hey, we're gonna give you this huge exaggerated thing, and then you go backstage and all the actors are like taking it really seriously, and like, this is, you know, we gotta do this again, guys, and this is, you know, you gotta take this, your lines were off, and your penis has a wart on it, and it'll go, you know, like all that whole thing.
Yeah. Which,
by the way, we just in case you thought Game of Thrones was done with wieners and boobs, we got a double shot in the span of what, 60 seconds. It's like, here's this and here's this. And it's like, oh, they're back. They're back to their old days.
Well, let's not stay on the tits and dicks too long. So let's jump. Where do you want to jump to?
Let's start with now that that's out of the way. Let's kind of start with the holy shit moment. There's a lot of holy shit moments, I guess.
There were a lot of holy shit moments, for real.
Let's start with the big kind of holy shit moment at the end. So the episode was titled The Door.
Yeah.
And usually I can spot these things a lot sooner. Never once did it occur to me why it was titled that until the very tippity end. I was like, oh no. But of course,
that was just, I mean, all of that was so crazy and unrevealed, like how there was sort of a passage out from under the tree and whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was any way for anyone to predict that.
No.
It was so wild, and immediately paid off. And this is exactly what I think Game of Thrones should be doing. It paid off something they set up only like 2 episodes ago at the Tower of Joy, when it appeared that Ned heard Bran call his name.
Mm-hmm. And it paid off the fact that we saw young Willis. 3 episodes.
And it's, it's like, that's what you should be doing. We don't need to catch up with these characters 13, 14 episodes later or something,
But it did pay off in a huge way the entire character of Hodor from start to finish.
Oh my God, that was such a satisfying payoff.
Like, as sad as it was to see him go, his loop is complete now.
Yeah, what an amazing, like, having that time travel element come together, which was funny. I read one viewer comment say, hey, wait, what the fuck, like, time travel's, a part of this universe, and it's not that you and I had talked about, like, actual time travel, but I have been pointing out, like, what are the rules of Bran, green seeing or heart tree seeing or whatever, because we know in the books it's sort of like every moment is one moment.
Now, where did you get the term green seeing? Because I've heard that 3 times so far since that aired.
Well, that's what Jojen calls what he can do. He calls it like the sight or green seeing.
Okay. Is that a book thing, or is that in the episodes?
He does call it that in the episodes, but it's it's one of those sort of forgotten lines from when Jojen was first meets Bran. He's you have the sight is kind of what he says, I think, and it's
you'll a green seer.
Yeah, and it's just I don't think they could technically do the same thing. I think Jojen could see things in his dreams that he knew to be either future events that were about to happen or events from somewhere else in the land that were going to happen.
The only reason that Mira and Jojen met Bran is because one of them didn't Jojen say I dreamed about you or something like that.
Yeah. So but I don't like. That's just what a lot of viewers have been calling what Bran's doing. I don't think he's technically green seeing because he's part of the weirwood trees, and he's seeing through the heart trees and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, you and I have been talking about like what are the rules of this, of this travel? Because in the books it's clear that all moments are sort of one moment, like he can look through a certain tree and see the past and the future together, and at least that's how I understood it.
He hasn't seen the future yet, though, in the show. Let's be clear about that.
But this was such a cool way for all of that stuff to to just make sense in the rules of the show. And honestly, I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying George R.R. Martin couldn't have done it like in the books in as cool a way as they did it in the show. And not just because they could visually do it, but it's just because he's so in love with drawing shit out for so long.
Yeah.
And, Bran's still part of the fucking tree at the end of book 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's still sitting there with the three-eyed raven, and none of this happens. Like, there's none of that, the White Walkers, the Night King touching him and being able to break the spell.
Which I totally called, by the way. I knew that's where they were going with that in that preview. I'm like, the White King's going to see him. It's going to be one of those accidental things where he goes by himself. He's going to get caught. What I didn't anticipate, and what kind of scared the hell out of me, was they show up as fast as they did. I thought, they'll, 2 more episodes, they'll show up.
Crazy.
And then all of a sudden, the child of the Force is like, they're here. I'm like, or no, it was Mira. Wasn't it Mira who's like, oh God? And you see, like, it's night and, like, the snow, it's frozen everywhere, and then they're all gathered around the tree. I was, oh God, I just got chills.
So, yeah, and I mean, like, that's another thing. Like, we got to break down all those rules, too. It was probably in Joe Robinson's Vanity Fair piece that she puts out on Sunday nights where I read this. But she points out to a couple of things that, like, if I read them, I don't even remember from the books, about how, and maybe this is in the Land of Ice and Fire, the World of Ice and Fire that you have, the big coffee table book, where Bran the Builder, who is this, like, ancient Stark, he has built, like, he was one of the people instrumental in building the wall, and the wall is actually magic. It's not just a big-ass wall.
But it's imbued with magic, I thought.
Yes.
It's actually it's a physical, tangible thing, but it's the
and that's what's keeping the White Walkers out of the Land of Men.
Mm-hmm.
And so it appears, and a lot of people, I've seen a lot of comments about this, that Bran, by breaking those rules, has done worse than just letting them into whatever that weirwood cave he was. Mm-hmm. This could actually, if he runs under the wall, he could actually bring the White Walkers in to Westeros. Because,
interesting.
Because now maybe they can now break that magic, because there was also magic to that cave that was keeping them out.
That's true. Wow.
So he's apparently screwed all this stuff up. And then one of the other weird comments I caught was someone said, wow, we learned that Mira, like, threw her dragonglass spear and killed one of them. But, like, we've known all along that dragonglass can kill them. I didn't get that at all. I was like, that's obsidian. That's what Sam killed the White Walker with.
I was more surprised that she had. I didn't realize or had forgotten that she even had that. I was like, she has one of those? I guess. It never. It was so fast, and we passed that reveal like 3 seasons ago.
Right, and I think what was more confusing was I wonder if we were supposed to have understood that Sam gave them some dragon glass and made the spear about it.
He did. You're totally right, because they encountered Sam, and you're absolutely right. He traded them. Yeah. He's like, here, take this, and I forgot about that.
When they find the tunnel under the wall, they exchanged that. So that to me was like, it was a weird payoff, because I don't think a lot of people were, there's tons of shit that I've forgotten or don't pay attention to, but I think that was like, usually when they do that kind of stuff, it's in the preview to the episode. We would have seen Sam handing the dragon glass to Mira or something, Well,
let's break this down though, because there's a lot of confusion on what exactly happened, and so step by step, let's go through this.
Okay.
The White Walkers and the Night King. By the way, this is the first time I think the term Night King has been used on the show.
Yes.
Yes. Bran refers to him as the Night King. They're all there, and that Night King, by the way, the design on that character is so freaking sinister. Like that, they knocked that out of the park. Like I'm terrified of that. and just the way it moves and the way it just it doesn't speak. I hope it never speaks.
Yeah,
That'll
me
kind
too.
of ruin the effect. But they show up, and the child and Mira's like, and I think right as they're showing up, the three-eyed raven's like, Bran, we gotta go back. And it's not entirely clear why he takes him back for one final lesson. I thought he was gonna kind of like transfer his memories and stuff into Bran, and that wasn't happening. So
Well,
or was it?
I don't know exactly what happened there, but some super sharp-eyed person, and again, just to keep crediting her, it was probably Joe Robinson, pointed out that there is this shot of this weirwood where we really clearly see a face, and that it really looks like Max von Sydow.
Oh, interesting.
So it was sort of like maybe that last journey was him imprinting on that tree, you know?
Okay.
So, yeah, but I agree with you. There was no lesson that we were watching take place, so I guess it was just sort of a knowledge transfer.
Well, and more importantly, they were in there, and they were getting attacked, and they weren't coming out of it. Like,
Right.
You'd think that they'd try to move quickly so that they could get the hell out of there, and they're just kind of hanging out in the past again. And I'm like, why are they back there? Like, that was the only confusing part. I mean, it was overshadowed by all the awesome stuff, but that was the only part where I was like, why are they back there again? I mean, it's not like they went to a different place or they went to the center of the universe. It's like, we're back here at Winterfell again for some reason.
There were so many cool little pieces of that. The first one was I loved when Bran told the Three-Eyed Raven, that that he'd seen the Night King, and the Three-Eyed Raven, I think, is the one who says he touched you, didn't he? And Bran pulls his sleeve down and reveals it. And the Three-Eyed Raven does not freak out, which was so great. That was just so perfect for like the instructor and the parent of like, yes, the time has come. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi turning off his lightsaber and letting Darth Vader swipe him into oblivion. It wasn't like, you fucking idiot, you've ruined everything.
Well, what's really cool about that moment though is that Bran's like, am I ready? He's like, no. It's just like, oh, okay. Like it was.
But
it
you're
was
not, man. Yeah,
very practical. It was a very practical. But I think he was kind of saying, he's like, no, but I don't think you're ever gonna be. So it's as good as it's gonna get for now, and we're just gonna roll with it. That's kind of how it felt like. But I still am not entirely sure. I need to go back and rewatch that scene because I'm not sure why they were at Winterfell. But when they were at Winterfell, he was rewatching a scene he's seen before in the past. That one where it's his father and his grandfather, talking, and then you see Willis. And here's where things get really interesting because Mira's shouting at him from the present, like, save us, Bran, help us! And Hodor in the present's, rocking back and forth. And the last time that happened, Bran was able to warg into Hodor to basically help them out. Bran's not waking up, and I'm not, here, let me just tell you what my original thought was, and then I'll explain, and maybe how you saw it is how I see it now or how it really is. My original thought was, as she's calling at him in the past, he looks at Willis and figures out how to warg past Willis into future Hodor, or unite them in such a way that Hodor has his mind back, essentially. And because when Hodor wakes up, I was really thinking, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna, like, present day Hodor's gonna speak and be like, I'll save you all. Like, it was gonna be one of those kinds of things. But then that turned out not to be the case, and what I guess was really happening was Bran was in the past, but simultaneously warging into Hodor, but that created kind of a weird connection to his younger self that resulted in what we saw. Is that how you took it?
That's how I took it. That it was that moment of when they are using the Heart Tree site or whatever, they are linking these times together. They're not necessarily like traveling back and forth, it's just that those moments are all the same.
And warging is separate from that, which I think is the important clarification. I've been calling it all warging this whole time, but it isn't. Like, warging is a separate skill entirely from what they're doing with the time traveling stuff. And
that's why I was trying to be careful about like saying like people are calling it green seeing. I think it's important to see it as more than that because obviously this is something that Jojen could never do.
Yeah.
And it's different than the warging. Yeah, it's. But there's one detail I want to throw in there, which is when the grandfather is talking to Ned, to young Eddard, he mentions that he will be at the Vale. And that is this tiny, tiny detail that has only been brought up, like, I think in conversations between Catelyn and Ned, or Eddard, which is that just like Theon, well, not just like, Theon was a ward of the Starks. He wasn't really a prisoner, but it was a kind of peaceful exchange. The Greyjoys won't try any shit if their heir is at Winterfell. Ned was also a ward of Jon Arryn. So that's how he met Catelyn.
That's right.
And Catelyn was not originally intended for Ned. She was betrothed to his older brother, who died in a battle, and Ned was sort of the next most acceptable Stark, But that was a really weird thing, just because of that other scene that we see in this episode of Littlefinger talking to Sansa and mentioning the Knights of the Vale being all rallied, and her sort of, dismissing it, like I've got my own army. It was just a really weird detail to put in there if they're not going to sort of like, if they're not showing us that how connected those worlds are.
Well, now after this episode, I'm looking at everything like they know. I have done the thing that I thought I would never do after Lost, which is trust showrunners implicitly to have a plan and follow through on it. And so now I'm like, everything is connected. I feel after watching this episode like I did after watching the best Lost episodes or watching any episode of Carnival. Like, I felt energized. I felt like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I woke up the next morning like just full of creativity. Like, oh, I can't believe it. Because it's just like it was really cool to see finally my faith in this damn story really start to pay off in a major, major way, especially after last season where it was just like, I don't know, man. But going back to the...
number one, I think it was directed by a guy who directed some Lost episodes.
Is it really? I didn't even bother to look. It was certainly the most cinematic episode they have ever done, right? Like the shots, the editing, the music, like it felt like a movie. It felt like this, when they did the X-Files and then like at the end of the season, they're like, and now go to the movie theaters to see the rest of the story. It felt like that, where it's like, the show would have left off and we would have saw this episode in a theater. It just had that sort of sensibility to it.
Yeah, I agree. It was. I don't have any faith in the showrunners to do the right thing. But that's sort of freeing me, because when they do it the right way, I'm much more excited. But that's the other point of this episode is it showed you can do unexpected things that are not just unexpected tragedies, which is one of the terrible things of Game of Thrones, that for 5 years it seemed like they just don't get it, and last year when in the Sansa rape scene, it was like, there was something unexpected they could have done in that scene that was not just Ramsay raping her. I think that was just, it was such a cop-out of like, of them saying, well, of course this is like, what he would do. I just feel like, but there's some other interesting way to have told that story. And I get that we're still, again, like we said in our preview, I don't want to relitigate that. I get that we are seeing the growth in Sansa and the scars, that whole experience gave her and how that's influencing her now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, that's just not clever. Yeah. And this episode showed like you can do really fucking clever stuff. I mean, even the Brienne and Tormund like glance is so cool.
Oh my God! Like it was so quick. But again, that was an example of every second was utilized.
Exactly.
And we didn't need like a whole 10-minute scene of those two talking. It was just that moment for 5 seconds in the courtyard, and it did everything we needed to know. Where Tormund's like, "Oh, I'm into you," and she's like, "Oh God!" Like it's just it was so perfect. That's all we. And I'm a little concerned because next week we get a preview for another freaking Sam and another Hurley and his friend scene where he Sam and what's her face or I forget his girlfriend's name even. Good Lord, that's how little I care.
Oh, Gilly,
Sam and Gilly. Like I'm just like we don't need. Like it's stuff like that still gives me pause because I'm just like we don't need that. There's so much other cool stuff that we don't need that story. I want to see Sam return Bran style after being. It should be the same damn thing. He should disappear for a season, come back, wizened and like he knows what to do, and he can be a kick-ass character at that point. Like, we need to see him and his dad and all that bullshit.
And again, from the previews, we know that's not going to happen. So get ready for disappointments next Sunday.
Real quick, Jack Bender is the director of this episode, this, and he also directed Blood of My Blood, are the only 2 Game of Thrones episodes he's directed. He directed about 40 Lost episodes, though. So
Boom.
it makes perfect sense that it would have a lot of the same sensibilities as Lost. So I give Jack Bender the finale, give Jack Bender all of season. Let him direct every one of these things from this point on, and I will be a happy man.
Yeah, and to back up on my comment of how I don't trust the showrunners, this was yet another example of like when they are off the book chain, they do the right stuff. And I just, it's just sort of like, honestly, there have been so many episodes this season where I've watched it and thought, am I even going to go watch seasons 4 and 5 again? Or am I going to feel like, you know what, it's seasons 1, 2, 3, and then 6?
I was saying the same thing. I'm like, when I'll give a little bit of props to 4. There was some interesting stuff that happened there. But I can totally skip 5 from now on. Just skip right over it. And honestly, I don't think it's gonna, because it wasn't the end of 4 when Arya is on the boat heading to Bravos. Am I confused about that?
No, I think that's got to be right.
And honestly, you could send her to Bravos. Like, she didn't do anything last season, so you could pick up right again. And granted, she's blind now, so you have that little gap. But at the same time, who cares?
Some of that would actually be better and would actually fit in with that original outline of George R. R. Martin's, which was that there were going to be these. Like it would be a book about one period of time, and then it would jump ahead. And that would have been so great if Sam just left for the Citadel last season and we didn't see him till next season, and if Arya just disappeared for a season and she came back already trained. It's just.
I wonder if any entrepreneuring or enterprising fans are going to do, like I and others have been like re-editing the Hobbit movies to be more acceptable. I wonder if somebody's going to take on the gargantuan task of re-editing Game of Thrones 1 through 7 to be, to cut out all the bull crap.
Well, I mean, when I was so angry at it last year, I wrote this giant article about is Game of Thrones any good, and I just went nuts in it, and it was not in any way structured. It was just me rambling for thousands of words. But I was imagining these 3 awesome movies they could have made out of it. What if they had just made it as a trilogy of movies? And I definitely think that things like that could just be.
Though, dude. They'd have to cut so much. I've actually enjoyed. I mean, we'd probably get no Jack and Hagar. We'd get no. God, I mean, originally, remember this when George R. R. Martin was originally approached for this to be a movie, it was going to be only about Jon Snow and his story. It was just going to be that. And this was like back in 01, 02. So this he was only like 2-3 books in at that point. And I'm so glad.
Actually, he may have been 4 books in at that point.
Oh really? Oh shoot.
It took him 7 years to write 5, I think. I think there was a 7-year gap between them, and 5 didn't come out until 2012 or so.
Oh, that's right. Let's jump back though.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe that was earlier. Maybe 2010. I don't know.
It's one of those things where we could talk about it, but just it's so much. You can watch the Hold the Door, and just sit there in awe of it. Like I cried. I teared up. I was just like, man. There's 2 moments in the show where I teared up. That was one of them. I'll get to the other one in just a minute. But it was just like it was so heartbreaking. And for a minute there, I thought maybe Hodor would be able to like kind of prop the door so he could run off with them. And I kept hoping for them. Like, oh man, come on, just get it, and then you can go. And then you realize that he's staying. He can't go.
Well, that's funny because and other people have said that to me about just the heartbreakingness of it. But I just thought it was such a freaking cool and clever way to loop his character together that I didn't even feel that sense of heart. I was like, that's the way you go out, man. Like I think what gets me, what makes it worse are those times where some character is just sort of, some random violence happens and you're like, well,
I mean, think about this.
That interesting storyline.
Hodor had a more pimp ending than Stannis Baratheon, than Ned Stark, than like, I mean, name like you could come up with a list of 20 characters who have died on the show, and Hodor has had a more boss, send off than those guys.
I can't think of anyone who had such a amazing like fulfillment of their like character's destiny than he did. It was just so satisfying to see that. But 20 seconds earlier, a dire wolf just gets fucking brutally slaughtered.
Yeah, man, those
and it's like
direwolves.
there was not even a lingering, it wasn't even like when the Umbers put Rickon's direwolf's head on that table. I mean, it was just, dude, he was just gone. You just see blood and fur, and it's over.
The CGI of those zombies, coming into the cave and crawling on the it was breathtaking.
Well, and that was one of those things I wanted to say. You were talking about how, like, why didn't they sort of wake up Bran and Three-Eyed Raven, right as the danger approached? And I thought, as you were saying that, I was thinking, because that's how zombie movies work. They've got to be like about to touch you before you're able to run. And as much as I was sort of like, I don't know, as much as I hate zombies and sort of zombie tropes,
I'm with you.
In that moment, I was like, yeah, this is how you got to do it.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It's kind of like they took the speed of World War Z zombies, just the mindless speed. But I love that there's like, kind of like Walking Dead, where it's like, you can kind of get anything. You can get like a skeleton even, running through there, and it's just like they kind of went wild with it. My fear is that Hodor is going to pop up again as a White Walker in the final battle or something. There's going to be a callback to him in a sad way. I fear like. Or I feel like.
Well, that would be interesting.
Where do you think Bran and Mira are going to go? Where can they go?
Oh man, I don't know. What did we see in the previews for next week?
They're in the forest, it looks like, or they find themselves in the woods still running for their lives.
Does a man on a horse approach them? Is that what I saw?
I don't remember.
I think there's some speculation, and I could be way off on this because, like you said, I've been in the middle of a move this week, and I don't exactly remember what I read or imagined or someone else said or what I saw in the previews, but I think there's been some speculation that we are finally going to see Cold Hands, because I don't think we've met him in the show, and he's this former ranger that has this sort of like, he's basically a White Walker, but he's kind of immune to the evil part of it. Like he's sort of like a ranger.
That's not John's uncle, is it? It's not Benjen, is it?
Well, I think what I read this week, again, I'm way out on a limb here, so just, bear with me. I think what I read is that there's been some conjecture that's how they're going to reveal it in the show, is that Benjen is Cold Hands.
Okay.
But in the books, again, as I, fuzzily recall, Cold Hands is the one who meets them on the other side of the wall, like when Brandon, Hodor, and Mira and Jojen go under. They meet Cold Hands, and he's the one who leads them to the tree or something. I don't know. But I know when I read Joe Robinson's wrap-up about the magic of the wall and the magic of some other castles that Bran the Builder built, that Cold Hands does in the books explain to them that he cannot travel past the wall because of the magic in it.
Okay.
But she also points out, and so we should probably point out too, that Bran the Builder was also responsible for building Storm's End and Winterfell.
Oh, interesting.
So there may be 2 more castles that are immune to the White Walkers.
Ooh.
That have like a magic spell.
I did.
That protects them.
I recall didn't Old Man at some point mention your uncle, your great ancestor Bran the Builder built Winterfell? And that's been spoken in the show before, I think.
I know there's some callback, or I'm pretty sure there's some callback to Bran the Builder, but I don't think any of that magic shit's been explained at all in the show.
No, you're right, that has not. Speaking of magic shit, holy fuck, number 3 or 5, 3 of 10, the children created the White Walkers. Like, it was in the midst of everything else going on. They're like, oh, and by the way, honk. You're like, Jesus. Like, and then. And I don't feel like that. A lot of people are kind of mad that wasn't given as much reverence as it should. But I'm like, what else do you need to know? Like, we'll delve into that. I'm sure there'll be countless flashbacks where they can, build that out. But I'm just like, what the hell? Like, and that was just such a, and the way they did it too. Like, the children, especially that it was the one that had been helping them was the one who actually did the deed. That was the same.
Yeah, and I think in the book she's called Leaf, but I don't remember.
It's interesting too. They redesigned her since last season. Have you noticed that? Like her character design is like way sharper and better now.
I've noticed. I've felt that way about a couple of the sort of magical characters, that they just look a bit better this season.
Yeah.
I haven't really eyeballed it up close to checked out old screenshots or something. But
well,
that's
they
just
even
my
I remember too when we
overall
saw
impression.
the Night King last year. They improved him from his
Right.
sort of cameo appearance from like season 3 when he took the baby
Yeah.
and White Walker did, or like he's improved too, which is cool. It kind of makes it a little awkward to go back and rewatch. You're like, wait a second, like it just kind of has that oddball feel. But yeah, was that a huge shock for you?
Oh,
Was that a satisfying development for you?
The only thing that's dissatisfying about it is, I don't need too much here. I get that it's fantasy, but Game of Thrones has generally done a really good job of sort of explaining the rules to stuff, and we just don't know what the hell the rules are, either to Bran's heart treeing, or what the hell the children of the forest are actually capable of, because those like little fireball things that they have, and it's just, as cool as it is to watch, it's like, God, that's so weird, because there's so many other explanations, like even, like the, oh man, what's the stuff that Tyrion uses, to set the water on fire, like the,
Dragon, no, it's,
yeah, crap.
Wildfire.
Wildfire. Yeah, even that, it's sort of like, yeah, well, these alchemists were working in the, in the depths of whatever, and even that I would accept, but it's sort of like, there's just this weird magic that the children of the forest have, and
yeah, but here's the thing. I
don't get what they're doing.
They don't need to explain it, only because it's so ancient that
Right.
I feel like if they start to explain it, it kind of demystifies all that mythology. Like, the children were like, from thousands of years ago, like long time ago. So it's,
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they showed, that tree as it would have been back then when there was grass.
Yeah.
And it was, it wasn't ice covered and everything. So like the way they work, I kind of prefer it to be just like, with fairies and leprechauns and, Irish myths and stuff. Like, you don't really need to know the science behind it all, otherwise it kind of demystifies it. All of a sudden it makes I prefer it. It makes it feel older if it is unexplained to me.
I agree with that. I guess it's just that sometimes they are too easily wrapped. It's too much of the Deus Ex Machina, where they, like I felt that way the other season when the White Walkers attacked and Leaf like threw those bombs at them, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, she can just set them on fire?
Yeah.
So I just felt that way again when she shoved that whatever it was into that guy's heart and turned him into the White Walker. But the actual plot of it, like of them creating the White Walkers, didn't really bug me. Say what you'll say, because I want to tie that into something else.
Well, there's two things. One, it's kind of just interesting that they essentially created a WMD that they couldn't control. But more interestingly, and this is, I don't think this is necessary, but there are a few theories that the man they were, turning, the first man to be turned to White Walker is somehow a Stark. And I'm not sure what basis there is for that theory other than it sounds cool, but keep that kind of in the back of your mind too. I
would throw that out only based on his appearance. Wasn't he a blonde?
Yeah.
And there's like a really,
That's blonde though.
Well, I mean, he's not. I'm pretty sure it's sort of like that George Martin uses those. He's a lot of times he's telling the lineage of someone in the way they appear.
Oh, sure.
And so if they're a blonde, they're probably a Targaryen or or a Lannister, and that's why there's sort of that confusion over Tyrion's parentage, because he has two different colored eyes, and I think that's a Targaryen trait. So that's why that theory of Tyrion being a secret Targaryen kind of sticks.
Yeah.
But that I think is that good. That's where I wanted to jump off to, which is, you and I, stumbled on a really widely published piece of this fan theory that I just love. One of the commentators on Vox talked about this, that he thinks that the show is going to reveal Daenerys to be a villain, if not the villain of the show.
Okay, let's talk about this.
I just want, but yeah, I'll let you jump into it. I just wanted to point out that that's what I think is really interesting about that twist of the children creating the White Walkers, because it's sort of like, wait a second, are they the good guys?
Yeah. Well, okay, you teed that up perfectly, and I didn't even make that connection. You're right. Yeah, they're saying, yeah, these children are they did some. They're not innocent. They're just as corrupt as. And granted, they're like, but we did it to protect ourselves. But it's like, yeah, but look what you caused. Look at all the bullshit we've had to deal with since then.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can make a great case that the Children of the Forest are the original, are the OG villains of this whole thing. The article you mentioned.
I'm thinking like maybe they're the heroes because they saw what was coming with the Targaryen madness, and they were like, we gotta create some ice monsters or something. I know that's a huge reach.
So the article you're referring to, it goes to great lengths, and we'll post it in the show notes if you're interested. It paints this picture that Daenerys is actually the true secret villain of the show, and it goes through point by point. Every time she rolls into somewhere, she fucks shit up for the worse, and it's and she doesn't really seem remorseful about it. Like,
and I love that it was like you sent this to me on Twitter, and it's like, man, it perfectly fit into the conversation we had about the last episode, where I was talking about how Daenerys keeps fucking things up. And you pointed out, like, well, she is the child of the Mad King. Yeah. And even just you saying that, like, stunned me. I mean, we literally, like, paused on the show last week for me to look that up and go, oh, yeah, you're right. Because I didn't have that in my head. I was thinking, like, no, she's the nephew or the niece of the Mad King. But, yeah, you pointed out that she is the descendant. She is the female heir.
Well, it was Rhaegar, Varys, and her. And Varys, we already know, was mad. I mean, Varys was the
Viserys.
Viserys, thank you.
Yeah.
He was the what the hell? He was the Joffrey of the family, right?
Yeah.
He was the one that got all the crazy, got hit with the crazy stick. Rhaegar, as far as the tales go, was the virtuous, triumphant hero that was the least crazy. I'm wondering if Daenerys isn't somewhere in between. And I wonder if, and this article goes and paints, every time and even to the point where, like, the Calls, for example, the most recent example we have, the Calls actually had, as much of as bro dicks as they were, they had a sense of order and a sense of community, and it seemed to work, and they were able to keep everything pretty much in check. She rolls in and just says no to all that, and kind of enslaved this entire group of people. And
none of her storyline really makes sense to me unless she is the villain.
Yeah, and it's like she's got these nuclear weapons that she's got. She's you could say you hate slavery, but since she's ended it, it's almost made it worse. And I think Tyrion is trying as hard as he can to kind of repair that a little bit, going, hey, we rushed into this. We're going to give this more time. You can't have slavery here, but you guys and I look at the way like Missandei and like Grey Worm, those guys are reacting to this stuff. They're so revolutionary. That it just feels like, everyone's one man's revolution is another's tyranny. It's like it'll be interesting to see how they play that fact out, and maybe it's such that she's the villain until the White Walkers are really the villains.
Well, and it's such an interesting twist because that thing that I've pointed out that I've hated all along is how much the show shows her as if we're supposed to be on her side.
Yeah.
And what a problem I've had with that all along. It's like, no, but I'm not on her side. She keeps screwing things up. So that even, to me, to people who are on her side, to everyone, it's such a perfect twist to make her the villain.
That being said, I did love the scene with her and
Bora.
Bora
Mormont.
Bora Mormont. I mean, only in the sense that he finally got to say how he feels, and God help Ian Glenn. Like that he brings it for the acting. It's like I noticed in the credits he's the with credit at the end. So that usually at the end of any credits in a movie or a TV show, the first person and then the first person gets top billing, but then like kind of that next intent is like the with. It's kind of like we're gonna separate you because you're special too. So he always gets that credit, but man, he deserves it. He made me believe in him again. I'm just like, Bora, you're, it's like, come on, man. And then he knew he was basically going to his death. Like, he's not gonna find her. He knows that. I think she knew that too, but she couldn't say goodbye. So
it was a really touching scene. Other people pointed out it was good to see her actually show like an emotion that's not anger or whatever else. Kali,
she starts speaking old Valerian and fuck shit up and summons her dragons and stuff. As cool as that is.
And on a selfish note, I'm pretty happy not to see him for a while. So.
Yeah, no, you're right. And here's my question: the next time we see him, is he going to be like, more or less taken by the grayscale,
like
like
Stone Man?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how, because he'll be back. It's like I hope to God we don't have 25 more minutes of him finding a cure because we don't need it. Like he needs to just go off, and if we find him, it'll be interesting.
He's probably got some like sacrificial play that's coming up,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's keep going because there's so much. Oh my God, there's so much. While we're still in the marine area, the marine vicinity, Tyrion and Varys invited. It was a weird solution too. They invited a Red Priestess, and apparently the Red Priestess of all,
right,
to the cast or to the pyramid. I'm not entirely understanding why Tyrion made that play. He's like, hey, we need credibility. She's not here.
Well,
but why would he lean into the red, the red religion or the?
I got the connection, man.
Okay, I'd love.
It was one of our most hated scenes from episode 1, but when Varys and Tyrion are just strolling through the city unaccosted by people, and they see that dumb graffiti written in English about Misa, all the masters or whatever, and Misa as a master. They walk by a red priest preaching, and all of these people really listening.
Oh, damn!
I know. It was like such a seed to plant that whatever the hell that religion is called is, that's the religion of that city.
Ralliarology.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's funny, I remember that scene. I remember the graffiti. Do not remember the red priest.
Yes,
and see, it just makes me more excited that they know what they're doing. Like, we're going to take this obscure little thing and make it a bigger thing. Like, wow, really?
Well, I agree. I really hope that they, that they're, it's not that I have I don't know. I'm tempering my faith in them, of course.
You're a fool me once kind of guy. It seems like you've been betrayed too much by the show, so you're just gonna hang back.
One of the things is that it's like in the long rant that I did last year. It's not that they don't follow through on those things. It's that those clever seeds are planted there. It's just that sometimes it'll take so long for them to follow through that it sucks the energy out of it.
Fair enough.
That's what I've really liked about this season is they plant a seed in a boring scene like that, and it and 5 episodes later it pays off, which is really cool. All the brand stuff that is paid off so quickly, and even though I'm just holding out hope that something cool, Arya does something cool, because
it was really smart. I don't want to jump back on Bran, but it was very smart of them to keep him away for a while. Yeah. And jump right in hey, he's been training this whole time. We don't need to show you that. I'm like, oh, great.
Right.
I was a little bit annoyed we didn't get at least a glimpse of him last season, but honestly, I'm fine with it now. It's if this is how they're going to treat it, go for it.
So back to the Red Priestess.
Yeah.
That scene, the only thing I can point out about it is that reaction that Varys has to her knowing about that scene, because there is another great fan conspiracy theory that is the Meisters are responsible for the death of magic in the realm. And I wonder if this put fuel on that fire, because, and I'd forgotten this, but I guess when he originally tells Tyrion about the time he was cut, that he talks about how he hates magic in that moment.
I remember that.
And so to me, all those, I was thinking of the Meister conspiracy as Varys is lecturing the Red Priestess on religion and stuff like that. But it's just sort of that scary moment of her reminding him well, actually magic does exist. It doesn't really matter how much you hate it, or how much the Meisters may or may not have tried to kill it. It's here.
And Varys was really uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
And remember, here's another little flashback. So remember back in season 2 when Tyrion was Hand of the King.
Yeah.
And Stannis was mounting his attack. Varys kind of goes to Tyrion and gives him a pep talk, going, "Hey, dude, you gotta do something here, because Joffrey doesn't know what he's out of his league.
Yeah.
And guess what? Stannis is in league with this Red Priestess, and you have no idea the shit they're gonna bring down."
Yeah.
In the name of that religion, if they come here, so we got to fight them back. He specifically called out the fact that Stannis was associated with the Red religion as a negative. So all of a sudden, I do kind of want there better be another scene where Varys and Tyrion, where Varys dude, I'm not comfortable with any of this. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see that acknowledged a bit more. I get it. It doesn't have to happen. You know, it doesn't. There's so much going on. I get why they didn't have time for it, but there better be a scene coming up where he's just like, "Hey, and it feels like, maybe it's just me. It feels like they're almost setting Varys up to exit. Like, he's been getting more increasingly uncomfortable there. Like, you watch him in scenes, he doesn't say a lot anymore. He just kind of, like, Tyrion's kind of running the show, and Varys is just kind of there, which is a complete opposite from him being like, I'm a schemer, and my little birds, and I'm having so much fun. You know, now it's just like, oh, God, what have I done? Why? How? Oh, God. You know, so it's just like, it's kind of like... It kind of feels like Reince Priebus in the Republican National Caucus, where it's like all of a sudden they've unleashed Donald Trump, and he's just like, "Oh no, okay."
What have I done?
He still has to be in power. He still loves power, but he's like, "I don't know, man. This isn't what I signed up for." You know, it's just like it feels like that. So I want that paid off. If they do, I'll be just as happy.
I do think I think it portends interesting things for Varys because. You know, he said all along, I like that you point that out, because he said all along that the side he is on is the side he's always been on. It's the side of the realm.
Yep.
You know, he's always been like the safety of the realm. And you can see that while Tyrion excels at like all the like little, you know, politicking of the city, that's super boring to Varys.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, hey, if we're not playing the big picture, this is not interesting to me.
Well, and Varys is super big picture. I mean, there's still a theory that he was largely responsible for spiriting away baby Daenerys and her brother back when. You know, I don't think we've ever seen that expanded on in the show. You know, there was a little bit of it, you know, that's early on that, you know, it kind of connects him to those kids more, but there's, you know, he may have been the one to actually do it.
Well, he was definitely in touch with the dude whose name I don't remember.
He was in touch with No, I know exactly. It's the guy from the thick of it. Oh God, now I can't.
The guy from the thick of it.
It's Peter Mannion. What the hell is his name? The actor name. Oh God. But he was the one who introduced Khal Drogo to Daenerys. Roger Allam plays him. That's the actor. God bless Roger Allam. But he played this character in season 1 who introduces Daenerys to Khal Drogo and kind of arranges that. And then you see him in the catacombs of King's Landing talking to Varys, and Arya overhears it. Also in season 1, so you see those two connect, but it never. Maybe we'll see more about that. Maybe we won't. The other interesting thing about the whole new Red Priestess is, you know, you've got Melisandre who's like, no, Jon is the prince that was promised. I know that now. This priestess is like, no, Daenerys is the princess who was promised. I know that now. Are we sort of back-ending our way into the three-dragon theory?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
By saying, because at some point, Melisandre and this new chick are going to end up meeting or have some kind of confrontation. And I have a feeling like, you know, the solution is going to be, well, we're both right. And, hey, there's a third one, and who's that going to be? I mean, at this point, I'm still on team, I don't want it to be Tyrion. But who else would it be if not him? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thankful that the show has gotten rid of all these other false dragons, like, you know, the Martell boy that was sent over there, and the secret Targaryen that the Martells also sent, or whatever. And
Hashtag never Tyrion. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just not. I mean, if it happens, fine. But I'm just like, it's not interesting to me. It's not as an interesting choice, and it kind of betrays some of his character dev. But if they make it work, they make it work. You know.
Yeah, I don't like it because it seems like a real obvious twist. I guess in that sense of that he's been so built up as it. You know, maybe it's Mira, the secret Jon Snow sibling.
God, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
I would be so down for that.
Or Arya. I'd be into Arya as the third dragon.
Maybe. I mean, maybe they somehow pull it off.
Yeah, we should just do a whole podcast that's called The Third Dragon, and it's just us. It's just the two of us naming every single person in Westeros in descending order of who would be the most interesting. We
should do that as a live video podcast, so we can have one of those like crazy criminology like bulletin boards with like the pictures on it and strings, and like we can go through and, you know.
Make our case.
Yeah. So let's real quick. I don't want to. We're just.
Let's get lightning round.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be very long.
I know there's a lot, but let's start throwing it out there.
So first scene, Sansa and Baelish.
Great speech by Sansa.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so a lot of people were throwing this under the bus, and I'm like, why? They're like, because it doesn't tell us anything new. I'm like, dude, it tells us everything new. It tells us definitively that Sansa has made a choice. She is not going to be like Littlefinger. She tells it to his face, and she basically says, I'm going to go about this the tried and true Stark way, with honor and loyalty and grit and vinegar and all piss and vinegar. Now, did that go so well for her father? Not really, but.
Or her mother? Yeah.
Her mother? Not really. So maybe she'll meet the same fate. But I love the fact that she was like, because this whole time it's like, ooh, Sansa's being a schemer and a manipulator, and she's like, no, fuck that. I'm done with that. I'm done with you, and this is my sort of declaration of that.
Well, two things. There has been sort of a fan theory, or maybe just another podcaster's theory or something about that maybe Sansa is going to play the role of Lady Stoneheart and start enacting Catelyn's vengeance on the land. And maybe that's kind of the substitution that the show is making.
Oh my God!
So I wonder if that sort of
get excited.
portends that. But secondly, do you believe that Littlefinger was actually afraid of her and Brienne with those threats, or do you think he was playing that fear?
I think he was not traditionally afraid, but afraid that he lost his new sort of protege / future lover or whatever. He obviously had a thing for her,
Well, it's just that Catelyn obsession he has.
Yeah, but he transferred that to Sansa, and he even says, "You look just like your mother, but younger." It's just like that whole he kissed her in freaking the Eyrie, for God's sake, and that was a little bit to drive Liza nuts, but I think he just wanted some. It's like I think.
So did he underestimate her? I mean, or do you believe that is a true thing? That's what we were supposed to see there.
Underestimated her. More so underestimated her loyalty to, or her need for him. I think he was gonna. I thought he would drop her off. In his mind, he'll drop her off with Ramsay. Yeah, he'll knock her around a little bit, but she'll get over it and it'll be okay. He's not that bad, and I'll bring them back into the fold when I'm ready. I think he did underestimate how shitty Ramsay really is. I think there was a little of that. I love her whole thing. She's like, you either did know and you either didn't know and you're an idiot, or you did know and you're my enemy.
Oh, I don't believe that at all. I don't think he underestimated Ramsay at all. I think he knew exactly what Ramsay was going to do, and maybe he thought that would break Sansa, and he
loved her too
maybe
much,
that was the role. I agree. That's why it's still just again, butterfly effect. That was the repercussions of the show's choice to put her in that position are resounding in positive and negative ways, because now we're sitting here guessing what we actually saw from Littlefinger, even in despite of the fact that we see very positive growth in Sansa.
Give Sophie Turner her acting award, because every episode she's in this season, she's bringing it.
She really has turned around from the annoying girl in the first couple of seasons to one of the heroes.
She's my new favorite over Daenerys now. And I love, again, going back to last week, she's put together this awesome kickball team of people now that I'm just like, holy crap, man. And you look at how she delivered that speech. She's like, she laid it out very plainly. She's like, I still feel all the shit he did to me.
Oh my God!
I'm standing here, I'm just like, oh my! And I believed her. I believed everything she was saying. And I think you watch how Baelish responds to that. I think he's shocked that she had to go through that. She's reminding him that this all happened to her. He's like, you told me you'd protect me, and this shit happened to me. I think he's also a little shocked that she is dealing with it as well as she is, and is using it as fuel for her vendetta. It's like, I'm not going to let this hold me down. We're going to go, shit's going to happen. And I think all of that kind of took him by surprise, and I think he was a little speechless as a result. And I think when he's like, I think he was calling her bluff a little bit, where he's like, do you want me to, I'll die right here if you want. I think he knew she would never pull that trigger. But I do think he was taken back quite a bit by that encounter. I don't think there wasn't a lot of acting from his side, or a lot of sort of make believe from his side.
Well, one of the payoffs that we were kind of denied in the show was that at the end of book 3, at least for me, there was such a satisfying reveal that Littlefinger had orchestrated everything for the first 3 books. He was the one that had convinced Liza to poison Jon Arryn. He had set all the events in motion. that led to Ned Stark dying, and he had manipulated Sansa into the Eyrie, and like all of that. And to me, it was like, holy shit, that was such a good mystery, and especially because the detective, which was the role that Ned was cast in the first book, where he's going through all the old books of lineage of kings and queens and deducing that Joffrey and Tommen and Myrcella were the children of Jaime and Cersei, and like Ned was the detective, and to have him killed in the first book, but have this mystery play out until the third book was so satisfying as a reader, to me, at least just to me. And I really felt like when season 3 ended, or actually I guess season 4, we were kind of denied that real gratifying like moment. Somehow it just didn't play right to me when he revealed himself, and it didn't feel like he had orchestrated stuff. It just felt like he was responsible for some stuff.
Or he was able to. Yeah, I feel you, because it felt to me like he was just able to really roll with the flow expertly.
Right.
Less the mastermind, and more just like, okay, this is the situation. Here's how I'm going to deal with it for my to my advantage.
So I do think it would be interesting in the course of the show to have it play out that like he really can't manipulate stuff, and he can't ride the wave the way it's the way the tide is turned. It's like, this may be sort of like you think things are, Varys may be on his way out, maybe Littlefinger's on his way out. I mean, he's made a terrible enemy in Royce, the Knight of the Vale that he really pissed off last episode. And so even though he's got the Knights of the Vale on his side, that is a really, fragile piece that he's got. He's relying on this kid that doesn't really have a lot of credibility to just order his own knights around.
Well, speaking of tides and ships and things, let's take
let's get of course, that was interesting.
Let's take a segue too. And this was when I told you I teared up twice. Pike, man. I was really concerned when they're like, oh, and guess what? Pike's going to be back this season. I'm like, really? Why?
And I was concerned as a reader because I'm like, that is still not over in the books, man.
Yeah.
500 pages of the fucking Kingsmoot.
Yeah, but dude, they are handling it so expertly that I just so the Pike scene alone could have been the entire episode, and I would have been completely happy. Like everything about it was spot on.
It was. Yeah, we talked about like the Jon Snow scene a couple episodes ago where the pacing was so good, and to me that was the feel of Pike. Like I get the complaint that it seemed rushed, but they delivered so much information so concisely, and they still had all the big scenes. They still had his baptism, and like his madness and his plan. Like it was I had to rewatch the scene. Actually, I didn't rewatch the episode, but I did rewatch that scene.
Oh, me too. It's the first thing I rewatched.
And there was a point where you just watch on Yara's face as she realizes she's lost the Kingsmoot because he has a strategy for winning the kingdom, and she does not. Like she just had, and it was such like the look on her face. I was like, oh my god, that was
such
really
a roller coaster of emotion. Because so let's recap. She gets up there and she starts giving her power speech, and I'm like, I'm on board. I'm Team Yara all the way. Like I want her to be the queen of the whole thing. So she's up there, she's doing her thing, and then. I forget. I think it's just some random lord is just like, yeah, but guess what? Theon's back, and he's the firstborn. Yeah. And Alfie Allen goes and delivers what might be the best performance of the season so far. That dude is the MVP. He's the secret MVP actor of this entire season.
Oh my god, yeah, he's
Every
good.
time Alfie Allen's on, I want to write a movie that I can cast him in just so I can sit there and just marvel, because that dude they give him so much and he delivers every time. But guess what he had to do this episode? He's recognized as Theon. The first time that's probably happened since he's been back, and since he's been Reek. He is like conditioned to be Reek. So all of a sudden, a lord from Pike is like, "Hey, you're Theon. You're Balon Greyjoy's firstborn. You should be king." So all of a sudden, that hits him like, "Oh fuck! That they still are calling me this." And then he kind of slowly walks up, and he's gonna give a speech. The last time he gave a speech, it didn't go very well for him. And so, like, he's probably in his mind going, oh, shit, the last time I tried to do this, I got knocked out and turned into Reek.
I know, that was such a, like, crazy moment. He gives this really triumphant speech, and, season 2 or whatever, or 3, and then just one of his own men knocks him in the side of the head.
So he's got that. He still has that rolling through his brain, and then he's got the fact that like he's got to say something to get these guys excited about his sister. And then you look at Yara, and Yara's just like, oh shit, he's gonna betray me, isn't he? Like, and we know he's not, but she doesn't know that, and especially because like the lords are like, well, he should be king. So you see Yara, and then you see Theon start to deliver this monologue about how badass she is, and I started tearing up. And I'm almost tearing up now talking about it. Like it was so sincere. Like there wasn't a shred of like I'm just doing this cuz. It's like no man. He's like you could it was it wasn't even that long, but like every word he said was just steeped in like I've been through shit and she tried to save me and man she's been here this whole time and she's Ironborn like she's a badass, come on you guys, and he gets everybody on her side and they're like Yara, and then Euron comes rolling in like hey guys I'm Euron. And I was kind of expecting, having not read the books, I didn't know how they were going to play this out. I was kind of expecting... None of
this ever gets played out.
Oh, okay, so we haven't gotten this far. Well, cool. Well, so it's like I was expecting him to kind of dodge the whole like, why did Balon, And I love the fact that Yara was like, I think you killed him. He's like, yeah, well, I did. And I was just like, oh God, we're jumping into that. Like it got to that point that quickly. And what was really interesting about that, and again, after that amazing crescendo of emotion where it's like Yara, he's like, yeah, she's cool, but guess what? I actually have a plan, and my plan's pretty damn solid. So yeah, and then you see the crowd who was all fine with Yara go, well, yeah, you're right. So Yara. So it wasn't like Yara was bad. It's just like my plan's better, and I'm just like, damn it.
Oh yeah. It was such a cool microcosm of the Game of Thrones as it's played in Pike, and what is such like loser to me of a storyline in the books is like how long that frickin' storyline just drags out. I mean it's just super boring, and so again, I don't mind it. Like I can see that maybe there are parts of it where you're like, that's a cliche or whatever, but I just thought that the pacing of it and like the way the emotional points were hit really sold it to me. The reason I rewound it is because right after that speech, it cuts to like all their boots running through that cave towards the ships, and that was the part I was like, what did I miss? Why, like, how did the party get broken up? Like, did I look away for a second? And
I knew what was going down.
But when I, in the course of rewatching that, I just rewound too far and ended up watching the whole speech again. But that, what the hell are Thea and Yara doing? What do you think?
They're getting the hell out of it. They know that they're like, oh shit. Well, because
why steal the best ships?
So they can get out of there quicker, I'm guessing, and deny him sort of that strategic advantage. They know they're going to get killed by Euron. He even says, he's like, let's go kill him. It's like,
he said murder them.
Yeah, you've seen it. You've seen it in other parts of the show where it's like, if there are any blood ties to the throne that aren't your direct heir, get them out of the way. Like, and it's like you got these hard asses, of the sea. And it's like that's how they roll. So it's just like, well, yeah, I guess.
I agree, and I'm asking those obvious questions because I think I'm just wondering to myself, like, are we supposed to believe that like they suddenly developed a new plan and they've got a greater strategy that they're going to go execute? Because if they're really just trying to get out of his way, it seems weird that just
lives, man. There's no plan right now. They're just like, get the hell out of Dodge and we'll make it up later. Because I don't know where, so that's my question. Where can they go, right?
Right. And I guess that's what I'm driving at. Is like, do they have a strategy? Are we supposed to just assume they do, or maybe this is just something that gets revealed later? Like they're out on the open sea. Like, well, where do we go now?
Well, if it was me, and I was Yara, I would go to Marine and basically enact Euron's plan before he can get there.
I kind of think that's what they're doing. Yeah, that's sort of what I read into it. So, yeah. So in the show, has there been any... Oh, yeah, there is. There is a mention of Euron cutting all the tongues out of his men because he wanted silence.
Hey, real quick, though, is Euron and Victarion's story getting merged into one guy?
I don't even remember.
For those who don't know, Victarion is another Greyjoy brother who I don't think has appeared in the show yet.
I'm sorry that I'm not in front of a laptop, but I want to say that it is.
Because it feels like everything I've read about them in wikis and stuff, it seems like they're kind of consolidating both of those into just Euron, which I'm happy with. I mean, who needs another running around?
I think that, oh man, I'm going to be so wrong about this, but I think that in the books, Victarion may be the one that goes to pursue Daenerys. I'm not sure. I think we looked that up several episodes ago, and I was proven wrong. I think it is Euron. But in my mind, it's always that Euron was the crazy one and Victarion was the more skilled one. And I think in the books too, Victarion's the one who arrives very late to the King's Moot. Okay. And he's sort of like the one that throws the balance off of who will be king.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if there's like a later reveal that they're going to do, like maybe Victarion shows up, and I know, don't complicate this, just
this is beautiful. It's streamlined. It's perfect. Yeah. Don't fuck it up. Oh God, it was so, and I'm so like, I want Yara to be queen so bad, and I love it too because they're like, we've never had a queen before. She's like, there's a lot of things we haven't done before, and we've
never won a war before.
I'm just like, man, she's so and I love it too because it's kind of, in a weird way, it echoes back to what Balon told Theon when he first showed back up on Pike in season 2.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, guess what? Your sister's been here. Like, you're.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And Theon, because Theon was all, and think about total reversals. Like where Theon is now is 180 degrees away from where he was when he strolled in, in season 2. He's like, I'm the Prince of Pike. It's like now he's like, I am just here to support her, and I want this to work out for everybody. So it's just like. It's they played it so well. There's so many more things. Real quick though, did you notice how similar Euron and Theon, just the actors look? They look like they could be brothers.
It's funny because when Euron showed up in the episode where he murdered Balon, I was like, this guy just does not match my picture of him. And then I did when they Theon got a haircut, and. I noticed that. Like I realized like, oh yeah, they look like brothers.
When he comes rolling in, I'm just like, oh my God, they look just alike. Like that. I mean, for familial casting, it was spot damn on.
Yeah, and I think Yara looks like her father.
Yes, you're right.
Like there was that last scene of the two of them together, and there was this look that when she turns around and looks at him, and I was like, holy shit, they have like styled her to be her father. So. I mean, if there were more points you wanted to hit,
no, man. I think that's.
I don't know. I think we covered the outline. We've both
gone
agree.
longer than the episode itself now, so that's always a good sign.
Well, and you know what? One thing I was going to say at the top of our podcast was when you were mentioning like best episode and blah blah blah. I'd really like to go back and see what most like remind myself of what the episode 5 looks like, because we've talked about how there's generally a Ned's head moment in episode 9, and I wonder if there's, I just don't recall, like, has there been like one of those mid-season moments where you're like, oh my God, the roller coaster just went down the hill, like, that's what it felt like.
I'm gonna look. I'm ignoring season 5 because who cares? Season 1.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Sansa gets raped in episode 6 of last year. So I do think that was the mid-season like freak out. Is
that unbowed, unbent, unbroken?
Yep.
Yep, that's 6, all right.
Yeah, because I didn't watch the last 4 episodes, so 7, 8, 9, 10. So
season 4, it was the Laws of Gods and Men, which is the Tyrion trial, and then first of his name is episode 5, where Joffrey dies, or Tommen is crowned. No, Joffrey's already dead. Tommen's been crowned king.
Oh, okay, right.
Beyond the Wall, Jon tries to enter the feast. Yeah, so there's that.
So maybe there's maybe we can't draw like a big line of big dramatic scenes, but definitely there's always a mid-season kind of holy shit moment, and I'm glad we got it this week. That was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And just again, it was so balanced.
The Hodor
it's gonna be hard to top this thing, man. Next week, we'll see. I mean, again, every time I see Sam and Gilly in a preview, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, and you're gonna get your, we're gonna hopefully see the outcome of your prediction about the Tyrell army.
Yeah, well, I was right about the Night King and Bran, so.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, yeah. I didn't realize it'd be that damn fast. I was like, wow.
Man.
They're already here. I was like, oh Jesus. Which is great because it knocked me off guard. So I was just it put me in the same mindset of them. Like, what do we do? We're not ready yet. Like I was, which is a brilliant move. Brilliant move.
Well, that's cool. Let's put a pin in this one and get it out as soon as possible.
Absolutely. If you're listening, look at the show notes for anything we've got, and we'll be back with you guys next week.
Yep, this has been Wednesday in Westeros.